We've had Sleepaway Camp, Ernest Goes to Camp, Band Camp, Camp Rock, even Friday the 13th took place at camp. And now we have Theater Camp. Now, I missed it at Sundance, but I finally got to see it. And this little indie film is made for anybody who's ever wanted to share their voice. The eccentric staff of a rundown theater camp in upstate New York must band together with the beloved founder's broy son to keep the camp afloat. Now, theater camp may take you a minute to get into because the filming is done guerrilla style, meaning that it's very handheld. Now, not always shaky cam, but there's a lot of zooming and pushing in and out on subjects in ways that you can tell the camera isn't on a dolly or a boom. Now, sometimes the focus even takes a second to find itself, and there's a lot of grain to the image, making it appear as if it were shot on film if it wasn't. But also, it wouldn't surprise me if it actually were shot on film. Now, the editing, it's also abrupt and different. It's not displeasing, but it did take a little bit to get used to because there are many quick cuts that flash from one scene of, or maybe even a character, to another, and then back again, just in rapid succession. And I had the impression that this was almost like an end-of-camp compilation video that's put together by the students with just a little oversight by the adults. And I do know that that may sound like the editing and the filming is amateurish or bad, but it's not that at all. It's just a definite style that's chosen, and I do appreciate the consistency in which the filmmakers stick to it. And after a few minutes of getting used to the style, I barely even noticed it anymore, and then I could fully engage with the story. This stars Molly Gordon, Ben Platt, Noah Galvin, Jimmy Tatro, Ayo Edebiri, Nathan Lee Graham, Owen Thiele, and Patti Harrison. Plus, there's a boatload of insanely talented young actors. I was so blown away by the singing voices of so many of the kids that are showcased. And really, I wanted even more from them. Now, there's one kid played by Luke Islam who sings a bit of Defying Gravity. Oh, it gave me chills at his range. Kendra Sanchez sounds like she could really just be a Disney princess. She has this absolute pure and piercing voice. There's also Alexander Bello, who is going to mesmerize and stop you in your tracks because he can not only belt out songs with just a fantastic range, but also he's got great dance moves too. And then there's Bailey Bonick, who is just riveting when she sings. And these are only a few of the standouts. There are so many in the cast who are just as talented. Now, at the screening I was at, there was a large contingent of theater people, and judging by their responses, they were having a full-on blast. Now, I know there were jokes and even references in this that I just simply didn't get because I'm not in the theater community, but they got them and they loved them. But the wonderful thing is that while this is a niche film and a story, it's not so niche that it alienates anybody who's not inside the world of theater. There are universal themes that are explored that are relevant and palpable. It's diving into friendship and support, belief and confidence, plus then taking chances to pursue your dreams. These all resonate well and then make the production very accessible. Now, this is a pretty short movie, just 92 minutes, but there was a point towards the latter half of the film that I began to feel the time, and it made the short movie feel long. There are some scenes that are either drug out or not wholly necessary for the narrative, and had the story focused somewhere else, the momentum could have not taken a dip and then caused the pace to slow. There's this mixer type scenario between two camps, and while this is a setup for a character decision and action that affects the rest of the story, there's a bunch of time spent on the scene that didn't actually add anything meaningful to the narrative. And speaking of having two camps in this story, there was a distinct point where I really thought this was going to take on a Camp Rock 2 story arc, which that would have been a bummer because this wouldn't have just been original. But they do avoid that storyline, even though it still does share some similarities. Instead, it focuses on the main theater camp that we've been following the entire movie. Now, I had fun with the characters, especially with Jimmy Tatro and Noah Galvin. Tatro is playing the son of the owner of the camp, and he's also mostly a clueless bro, but somebody who's actually trying. We get to see an amazing amount of character growth from him, and despite the bravado and machismo that he displays, he's got a great heart, and it becomes really easy to root for him. And Noah Galvin is kind of a background player for a lot of this. He's sweet and quiet, and he's like the staff underdog, and that makes him endearing, and it's really impossible just not to want the best for him. And he gets to share a lot of wisdom, especially to Tatro's character, and their interactions work to show a growing friendship that is just awesomely based on trust and respect. The drama that unfolds between Ben Platt and Molly Gordon is engaging, but it does get a bit schmaltzy at one point. But the ferocity of their interactions help to set up a fantastic and satisfying character moment that should make you smile and may even make you cry. They play best friends who are acting teachers and aspiring performers. Those are their words. And there's a lot of awkward humor that comes about through their interactions. Some may come across as cheesy, but it's heartfelt and feel good. So it's the best kind of cheese, outside of Pepper Jack or Fontina. Now, this movie's probably going to get overshadowed in the theaters by the major releases, and it may end up only playing at your local art house theater. But this indie has a ton of heart, and despite some pacing issues in the latter part, as well as some predictability, it's a blast of a film that creates a world where so many can be themselves and not only belong, but shine bright. There's a lot to love, and when we get a touching story backed by outstanding performances and very talented actors, theater camp becomes enveloping and inspiring. So overall, theater camp shines in portraying skilled young singers and dancers, set against a backdrop that uplifts and encourages everyone to follow their hearts and pursue their passions. The original songs are excellent earworms with catchy melodies and entertaining lyrics, delivered by ultra-talented actors who wow with pure and piercing voices. The shooting style and editing do take some getting used to, and the pacing needs some work, but the final product provides a bunch of laughter, smiles, and even a few tears. This was a refreshing film that had me laughing out loud a lot and then left me wowed by the singers. There's no sex or nudity, some profanity, and very little violence. I give Theater Camp 4.5 out of 5 couches. So are you into stage plays or films that are shot like a play? If you have a favorite, I'd love to hear about it in the comments below. Now, some of mine would be 12 Angry Men, Mass, and Glengarry Glen Ross. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.